So we're here today to talk about how having ADHD impacts learning in the didactic classroom years of any of the medical health professional science programs, from med school to Pharm Ds to optometry to veterinarians across the spectrum, right? So Jim, I appreciate you coming in here to talk about these things. We love having these conversations. What's something we might expect to see with the ADHD learner? Let's talk about something.
Yeah, so I work with a number of students that have ADHD, so I hear what you're saying there. I thought it would be interesting for us to talk about first is something called initiation paralysis. I mean, how do you even get started? Not just studying, but how do you initiate that process, and really, what kind of strategies does the stat med learning process utilize in order to help learners to really kind of get up over that barrier, that learning barrier, where you have a large
climb that wall.
Yeah, climb the wall.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
This is something we've been talking a lot about lately. Initiation. Mm-hmm. Just like getting started. This can be like, Monday morning or Monday after class or Saturday morning, whenever, right? I want to start studying at 4 o'clock. I want to start studying at 9 o'clock, whatever, right? There's that gap of like, I want to get started. How long does it take me to get started? Mm-hmm. And I have found like my initiation paralysis is profound.
We all suffer from it, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah. And then
you
it's
don't
like
have to have ADHD to have that as an issue.
No, but then it certainly, I think, it's exacerbated by it, right? And then I think, when you've got so much burden on you, and I don't know, it'd be like if I swim, right? I swim. I have a love-hate relationship with swimming. Like, imagine if I had to fill up the pool every time I wanted to go swim. Yeah. Like that much more of a barrier, right? Like, I'm not going to swim, right? Or I'm going to swim less, whatever. It's an extreme example. So the idea, this idea of initiation, like I talk to my students about this. Like if you're losing 15 minutes a day initiating, it adds up to almost 2 hours a week, and it's probably way worse than that. You're probably seeing this with some of your advisees.
Oh yeah, it could be hours, not just minutes. But hey, I plan to start studying at 6, and I didn't start studying until 9. And so 3 hours, like you said, are gone right there. You mentioned the word guilt, and what I found with my students is that there is a tremendous amount of guilt associated with initiation paralysis. Students just assume, or they've been told, maybe by parents or professors or teachers, that they're lazy, right? The reason they're not successful is because they're lazy. And you and I have talked about this before. It's been a minute, but I don't necessarily buy into the idea of laziness in health profession students. When you think about health profession students, right? They're adult learners. They're investing a ton of time, a ton of financial resources, a ton of energy into this educational experience. They have, intentionality, right? They may lack agency, and I know you talk a lot about learning agency and really the methods that you use to help give them that, but they're motivated. They want to do it. And I think a lot of times they're just confused. They don't understand. They're like, why can't I get started? It's just, and they look at it as an interior flaw. And it isn't. It's, in a lot of ways, it's just the way our brains are hardwired. And like you said, in ADHD, it's just amplified, right? So what's your experience with your students? Because I know my students carry a ton of guilt with that.
Oh, yeah, it's all guilt. Well, think about the advice most of them have received leading up to even seeking our kind of the help that they might find with us, right? So let's say you're struggling. You're not finding success even in the first few weeks, the first month, the first semester. It could be second semester, it could be third semester. And this obviously carries out through independent study, board study. This can happen as a student, as a doctor, prepping for any boards. But we're just thinking about it through the filter of the classroom-based learner. They're going to go for advice. And it's like, honestly, the first things they're going to be asked are like, how many hours are you putting in? Okay. And then it's like, well, then so reflexively, you're going to be like, well, then I'm not putting in enough hours. And what most of those students are going to say is like, I'm kind of either studying all the time or I'm like asleep.
Right.
Like I've sacrificed everything else. And or if they go to dinner, go see a movie, they feel guilty. So there's guilt there, right? But then there's guilt like, I guess I'm not putting in enough time. So then they compromise sleep, they compromise what they're eating, they compromise exercise. But they feel bad, right? Because usually one of the first knockdowns is, Are you putting in enough time?
Yep.
Well, and then they're putting in time. So they're sitting at their desk studying, but then their phones are on. They're constantly toggling between being on task and being off task, allowing for interruptions to come in, corrupting the entire process. So then it's like what I call guilt study. Guilt study is like, I can't go out tonight because I have to sit at my desk. I can't go exercise because I have to sit at my desk. And so they sit, and they're probably engaging in low yield methods, but that's all and that's not their fault either.
Right.
Because we don't teach smart students how to study in general.
Yep.
Much less if you're coming in with an issue like an ADHD or something like that. There are patterns you can expect, and if you can identify the patterns, you can then build strategies to offset it, right? But they don't know that. We're not teaching this. It's all cultural failing, right? But the guilt is terrible. So then it's like, okay, not studying enough. Then it's questions of, well, if you're struggling and you're putting it, maybe you don't want this badly enough.
Right.
And so then it's like questioning like their commitment.
And then there's a comparison trap, right? They're looking at their classmates who are putting in tons of hours and like, why can't I be more like them? Or what's, it's always an internalized flaw, right? It's terrible. Oh, it's a vicious cycle. Retooling, right? Right. So, I mean, you mentioned before, again, when you look at the research in this particular area, right? And there's been a ton of it that's been done over the last several decades. There are a couple of study and learning strategies that really emerge at the top, right? And I'm sure you see this with your clients when you interview them and talk to them. I see it with the students that I work with and teach in the classroom every day, that students tend to gravitate towards and use because A, they don't know any better. B, the strategies make them feel productive. And C, they've actually worked in certain types of low learning demand environments, right? So
prior environments.
Prior environment.
And that puts a hook in you.
Right, it does.
That puts a hook because you're like, I know it used to work. So what I would think about this. I'll tell you what I think.
Yeah.
Like, so if they're like, okay, like that used to work for me. Like, we're talking about low yield strategies, I presume, right? Like,
so we're talking about rereading,
copying,
whatever, reviewing, studying your notes, whatever that means, right? Recopying.
Make a study plan, they call it like study guide, make a study guide, condensed notes.
Yeah.
Let me passively review. Right. So the reason, right, like it worked in the past. Therefore, okay, this is hard. There's more. So the logical trap, and this is nobody's fault, but it's wrong. The logical trap is I just need to do more of that. Like the conclusion is like, since it worked back there, like in undergrad or my master's program or whatever I did coming in, it worked. I just need to do more of it.
More of it, right.
Yeah, I need
to double down on
factor
what you're doing,
3.
Right.
Double, triple, quadruple down on it.
Right. You mentioned something that I think is super important is that hook, right? And getting
like what hook is in that learner.
Exactly.
And, it's like,
and how tightly are they holding on to those ineffective strategies? And, it's behavior change. That's hard for a lot of students. There are a number of students that, even if they get it
conceptually and
intellectually, and they know how to use it, behavior change is the struggle.
Behavior change is hard. This is like one of the facts about a human condition. Well, it's like a drowning person too, right? Like your loved one will drown you.
Right.
Like it's just this. I mean, the terror and the fear. It's more than guilt. When you get into your whatever semester you're in, it might be the first semester, second semester, third semester, whatever, classroom-based learner, med school, Pharm D, physical therapy, whatever, right? You get into this. And when you realize it's not working, it's terror. I mean, these.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, smart people. These are professionals. These are going to be doctors. Just the financial side.
Oh, absolutely. It can be devastating. Yeah.
They don't have a history of knowing what it's like to fail. A lot of them.
Exactly.
Right. There's like that imposter syndrome, and again, all of these things are exacerbated with the ADHD learning profile. But again, you can totally be there. Any of these things we're saying can absolutely be there without that profile. And then, like, again, the hook is like, okay, I understand there's this new way of doing it, but how? Like, I can't let go. I'm too afraid because fear.
Fear is a big driver in learning, unfortunately.
And again, I think a lot of times, like, trust yourself or don't be fearful. And that is not good, actionable advice. Now, you and I talked briefly, though. You have something another method tool
Yeah.
that you're teaching for initiation paralysis. What was it? We haven't talked about it fully yet.
Yeah, so yeah, no, definitely. And it's something very recent for me, and I've got 2 or 3 students that are really working with this strategy right now, and they do have significant ADHD, and so initiation paralysis is huge, right? And so again, the whole concept, and which is why I love your system so much, is you've got tools that are built in to take large, scary tasks, right, and break them down into manageable pieces. And it's, the technique that I've been working with is called interstitial journaling. So it's taking a task and even breaking it down into more minute steps. Okay. So for example,
frame this through like a lecture, like a lecture that you might teach,
absolutely.
right? Give me the name of a lecture.
Pharmacology of calcium channel blockers.
Sounds delightful.
Right. Right.
Right at my alley. Right.
And so, again, going through the process of, and you do this as well too, where you have your students in your study manager, right, come up with SMART goals, very task oriented, measurable, achievable goals. And then you have the different 50-minute study blocks, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right. So interstitial journaling, the way I would envision it kind of fitting into your system is for each of those 50-minute blocks, right? What you're doing is you're micro journaling. Okay. So for example, there are 3 things that you record: the time in which you initiate a task, the task that you're initiating, and next steps. So again, you can get so micro.
Yeah, it's real granular.
Very granular is the word that it's like step 1, open my computer.
And you write it down?
You write it down. It's 6 p.m. Open my computer. Next step, open up PowerPoint presentation for calcium channel blocker pharmacology, right?
Yeah.
And then the next step is whatever that happens to be. And what that does is it makes initiation less. There's less fear associated with initiation.
It's less daunting.
Less daunting, right? Everybody can open their computer up and get a file going, right? And you have a next step.
Yeah.
And it also helps with time awareness.
Yeah.
Which
because
I think
time blindness.
Time blindness, yeah, exactly.
Very real. Mm-hmm. And we see this a lot. Like, I spent X amount of time studying. It's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't. Like, you were at your desk for 4 hours.
Exactly.
You didn't study for 4 hours.
Right.
For 4 hours.
Here's one additional component to this too, that I haven't introduced to my students yet, because I just want them to kind of get, like you said, practicing using this, practicing doing it, right? So, time of initiation, what you're doing, and then what the next step is. And there's a 4th thing that you can journal or record, and that is barriers. So, for example, if you find let's say that the task is to framework a lecture. I'll use language that you use, right? And let's say halfway through that, you get distracted by your phone. So you write that down, barrier, got distracted by phone, then reinitiate frameworking, whatever time that is, and get started. And I think for me, that's a really powerful metacognitive monitoring tool, right? You're monitoring your learning, and you're evaluating the effectiveness of it, right? And you're seeing where your barriers are.
I love it.
Right? It's pretty cool, isn't it?
I've dabbled with this myself.
Yeah.
When I struggle with my own productivity and my own executive dysfunction, I think I love this. And so I think somebody on the outside listening to this might be like, now you're writing all this stuff down, not studying. This stuff takes so little time.
Oh, it's 2 seconds.
It's
right?
like
If
so
you can write down the
fast.
time, what you're doing,
so
and what you think you
fast.
should do it next, and boom, you're done. And then you just do it.
I guarantee you, if my ADHD stat med class students, if they did this, the yield is absolutely a net positive.
Yeah, and I think it fits really great into your ASA.
It does.
I think
It can fit in the ASA or the ideal real schedule.
Yeah.
If you just think about the block, and you could just inside the block
Track what you're doing.
Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, because and it could be within the ASA as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're sort of, because the idea is that we're offloading all of our thoughts and our plans, breaking large tasks into smaller tasks. I mean, it could be as simple as, oh, I've got this, I've got to redo, we call it reading and marking, R&M, reading and marking. I got to read it once. I don't want you to reread it. I'm reading the PowerPoint slides. I've already frameworked. I've been to lecture. Now I'm reading and marking. But I can also say, oh, like from my framework, I know that this PowerPoint, this 60 slide PowerPoint is actually 5 sections.
Yep.
Because I found that when I frameworked it. So I can break that workflow into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
I can read and mark, and I get to scratch off section 1. I get do the second one, scratch off section 2. That's workflow. But then I can also say, oh God, I do not want to read. I do not want to read this next section. Okay. What else can I do? Well, I could go back and framework self-test off the first 2 units. I could say, oh, let me pull this one slide I flagged out. Let me turn that into a self-testing tool. Get back into it. Lets me toggle. But again, I think it's all about this externalization, this offloading, these sort of metacognitive actions. Mm-hmm. And I think really this pivots out. What are we really advocating for our med students with ADHD? Is this externalization of tasks? Because a lot of us were so successful just holding it in our head, and it's like less work. Well, guess what? Like, there's a capacity,
right?
And
as you get older, that capacity goes down, doesn't it?
I'm familiar. Every year,
every day,
every day. Yeah, for real. And then but yes, this is a great way to sort of move past initiation paralysis and just to be more productive than once that initiation happens. I love it. And I love giving these different phenomena names, right?
Yeah.
This initiation paralysis.
Yeah.
And interstitial journaling.
Yeah.
I love it.